Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about something that Lauren Cohan was actually talking about in terms of everyone reuniting. And so, yeah, this is something that obviously everyone wants to see. We want to see everyone reunite at some point here. And yeah, she actually talked about that here, which is exciting because she mentions one thing here that is really interesting that I feel like it's the first time we sort of have heard it like this anyways. But yeah, we'll get into this here. So before going further, definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. But let's just get into this here. So, Lauren Cohan was actually talking about everyone reuniting here in a recent interview with Collider, actually. And it's really interesting what she says here. I will say she doesn't confirm that it's like happening for sure or everything like that. Like, I do imagine that they are going to reunite because everyone wants to do it. It really seems like everyone wants that to happen. And so, you know, I'm sure if they all want to do it, AMC wants to do it, it's going to happen, right? Like it makes a lot of sense, but it's just really sort of a matter of when. And, you know, the one thing that I've always said is the spinoffs airing right now is sort of, I think, you know, what is building up to that. I think once the spinoffs are over, then it's going to happen. So I think that they're building up to a moment like that because Lauren Cohan mentions two things here. And it's the second thing that she says here that is actually pretty interesting. And I do think that it makes sense, I think, story-wise to focus on some stuff like this. But let's actually get into what she says here first regarding, I guess, reuniting with characters like Rick and Daryl and just sort of everyone in general, right? She says, we've talked about taking these characters to somewhere where we eventually do all get back together again, and there's some intersection of the supergroup. I think it would blow people's minds, it would blow our minds, it would be the ultimate reunion and the ultimate finish. So that's one thing right there that I think is really interesting there. So she mentions that they've talked about this, like the characters, I guess at some point all getting back together again. And that's interesting to me because we haven't really heard that. Like, yes, they've all mentioned like they all want to reunite at some point here. Jeffrey Morgan mentioned at one point, you know, like he asks Scott Gimple all the time, like, when is it happening or this and that, right? Like, what are we building towards kind of thing. And this right here, I feel like is the first mention of just like, we've talked about these characters, you know, at some point getting back together soon. And so it's kind of interesting that she mentioned that, like she mentions the ultimate reunion and the ultimate finish. And so to me, that's sort of how I've always wanted this to play out. Like, I don't want them to reunite like next year or something like that. I want there to be like this really epic build of a story and then they all reunite and it's like this crazy just ending. I don't know if it's a season or two, maybe it's one season of like 10 episodes or something. And then they just end everything here, right? And then if they want to do a whole next generation thing or like a reboot of The Walking Dead, I think that'd be really cool too. But I want like this current story with these characters and these actors playing these characters, you know, especially to end in the right way here, because it would just be one of those things where if it didn't, you would look back in like 20, 30 years and be like, oh, like I'm really sad that that ended in that way, right? Like it would be really cool to see this story end in a really amazing way where it's just like, wow, that was a really epic like 20, 25 year journey of The Walking Dead. They eventually rebooted it. We had different actors and all of that. And that's, you know, that's going to happen at some point anyways, whether or not we like it. Like whether it's in 10, 20 years from now or 50 years from now, it's going to happen at some point. It always happens. And so I think that's totally fine. Like do a next generation story if you want to do that. But I think it's totally fine to reboot The Walking Dead. Maybe not right now. Like I think in 2040 or something like that, like I think you could do it then. But like right now, you know, the characters are obviously like they're still there. They have a story still. We're all waiting for the reunion. So don't do anything like that right now. But still, it's really cool for her to actually talk about that. Like the fact that you know, they've talked about the characters, I guess, eventually getting back together and like there being like this super group and it would be like the ultimate reunion and the ultimate finish. And so that would just be amazing. Obviously, we all want that. And like Norman Reedus, I know at some point mentioned recently that like he had no idea what was going on. He's like, maybe, you know, and I think it is one of those things where it's like, you know, they've talked about it. They want to do that, but it's like, when is it going to happen? I don't know. And I really do think it is just because the spinoffs are happening. So it's like they can't just go and do the reunion story because I feel like you would have to end the spinoffs really fast. And obviously you want the spinoff story to continue for as long as it can, right? And get like 4 or 5 seasons out of it and then do something like that. I think reuniting all the characters right now would be very, very fast. And I mean, to me, it makes a lot of sense to sort of build up to a moment like that. And I do actually want to talk about what Lauren Cohan had to say here, because it's sort of related to what I'm talking about here. So she mentions, in terms of how long we spend on our story in Dead City, even things we talk about that could happen in another season, it's such a new take and a new direction that as long as those things get to keep happening, then the story is not done. There's a big light coming for Maggie that we have in this long-term arc that's planned for her, so I definitely want to stay until the light comes. And so that right there is sort of what I was saying. Like, I do think for as long as the spinoffs are happening here, then like that's, you know, we have to wait for the reunion at that point. And I do think that Dead City is going to be a really interesting story going forward, because Maggie and Negan are both going to be, you know, I guess working together. And that's one thing that they've talked about quite a bit. And I still haven't really done a video on it, but Lauren Cohan was talking about like this new story here for Maggie that is really, really exciting. Like, it's totally new what they're doing. And obviously it has to be that they're both working together. Like, I see Maggie and Negan really working together in like a way that it's just like, this is actually pretty refreshing to see, right? Like, I do think that it's going to be one of those things where, and I also think it's time as well, you know, for The Walking Dead, because I think that the show, at least for that story, as much as it made a lot of sense for Maggie to never forgive him, it did get to the point where, like, I felt it in season 2 anyways, where I was like, I really do want this story to end, and I'm really happy that they actually did end it there, where it was like, she forgave him, basically. And I think that going forward now, it's going to be very, very different, where the characters are actually just going to get along now, and the story will be, I think, so much better for that, and I think that's really good for the spinoffs for Dead City, and I think just in general for The Walking Dead. So yeah, what she mentions there in terms of, you know, a story for Maggie, there is this long-term arc that they have planned for the characters. Personally, I think that Dead City is likely going to end with Maggie and Negan, I guess, sort of, I mean, they're already at that point where they both are working together, but I think that it's going to end this whole storyline of, you know, what's happening with them, because obviously, like, they're working together now, but Herschel's upset about some stuff, and like, does Herschel make it out of the season? You know, there's a lot of things like that, and I do think by the end of Dead City, that whole entire story will be worked out, and I think that it'll end. And then whenever they reunite or whatever happens after that, like, that's going to be a whole different thing. And so I'm interested in seeing where this is going to go for Maggie. I think that, you know, for the character, it's going to be really exciting, I think, for season 3. And if they do actually reunite at some point here in the next couple of years, like, I do think that it's going to happen by 2030. Like, to me, it just makes a lot of sense. Like, I think that Dead City Season 3 will be announced at Comic-Con, and then they might do a Season 4 announcement as well then, and then maybe Season 5, but I've heard rumors that Season 3 and 4 might be the end of Dead City, and then we'll see after that. So I think for sure about 4 or 5 seasons for Dead City, which takes us until, what, 2027, 2028, and then I think at some point after that is when all the other characters are going to reunite. And I think that's the thing, though. You look at a show like The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, and like, that show is very, very successful. So are they going to want to end that show at some point? You know, like, that's just, it's kind of hard to say. Like, maybe they'll just take a break for a little bit to reunite everybody, and then Daryl goes and does his other show again, right? Like, just does another season of that show, because I mean, I feel like they're going to want to keep doing that show for as long as they can, because, again, it's very, very successful, right? So anyways, yeah, I just really wanted to talk about this here because I saw that Lauren Cohan said that, and I've been really wanting to talk about it for a while, because it's honestly surprising. Like, I just wasn't expecting her to mention anything about this, because, I mean, the characters reuniting is something that we do want to see. We've talked about it for, I mean, the last however long, right? And I do think that after Dead City, there is more of a, you know, excitement, I would say, for The Walking Dead. It's definitely in a better place than it's been in like the last, I would say, year or so. Because last summer, I've never seen The Walking Dead in, you know, that bad of a place ever. Like, and I'm even thinking back to like season 8 of The Walking Dead when Carl died. Like, I remember when Carl died on the show, and there was just so much like anger and just like, I'm not watching the show anymore, this and that, the show is done. It was just so insane. And I think that, you know, going forward after that, it did get a little bit better once the Whisperers showed up. And even though Rick left the show right away and people were like, oh, the show was done, you know, they announced the movies and everything. We saw the Whisperer arc and stuff. Things did get like really rejuvenated. And I think that that's sort of where we're going right now. Is Dead City didn't necessarily do that yet. But I do think that The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3 is about to do that, and things are starting to get a little bit more exciting. And that's why I'm excited for Comic-Con, to be honest. I really hope that they announce something more in terms of like spin-off stuff, or just like the future of The Walking Dead. Like, what is happening next? Like, yes, we do have these 2 spin-offs right now, but there has to be something else out there. Like, they usually do a lot more than this, right? So at least like something else, like maybe an original spin-off or something like that. So I'm really looking forward to The Walking Dead at Comic-Con this year, which is like, what, less than 3 weeks now for sure, right? So yeah, but definitely post all your thoughts down below on all of this here. Make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. I will be doing my Q&A this week. I know that I did take a week off from doing the Q&A. Honestly, I had to move into a new place, and it was really a lot. So that's why the last 2 weeks I haven't really posted a lot of videos, because there was a lot of just stress with moving. Also, just not even that, it was like, you know, pretty emotional, I would say, moving as well, because the place that I was in, I was there for a very long time. And so it was just a lot, you know, I just took some time to kind of process a lot of that. And yeah, now I'm back on it here, doing videos and stuff like that, and I'm really excited to sort of like, you know, plan everything out here. I do want to talk about Morgan. I do want to talk about his return and whatnot, because Lenny James actually talked about that, I think last week or the week before. And yeah, I do want to get into what he said, because it's interesting. Like, I do wonder what they have planned for Morgan. And yeah, but anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.